welcome to today's episode, Michael. I've obviously known you for 5-6 years. I could be getting that number wrong, but I feel like it's a it's a good chunk of my life at this point. And from my understanding and my experience of working with you, even personally, flying over to Australia, to Adelaide, to film with you, having that fly on the wall experience of seeing how you work with your clients, how you navigate, how ultimately how you were living your life as well. Like you were doing a lot in terms of, looking after your own health, investing in your own health. So for those watching or those listening right now, I just want to give a bit more of an insight. Like, can you just introduce yourself a little bit more formally? Like, what do you love to do and what's your purpose on this world right now?
I guess my background is human performance. So I own Mojo Human Performance Institute and also Mojo Business Multiplier. I work with human behavior to help people perform better. And then that floats across to business quite well, because I think that about 90 to 95% of business problems are people problems. The strategy and the structure is easy, but if you put clowns to implement or manage structure, then things go wrong pretty quickly, as you're probably aware, and I've definitely learned that the hard way many a times in business. So, we just help people perform better.
What do you see is the biggest problem that holds, most coaches, most entrepreneurs back from actually reaching their potential in their career?
Mate, the easy answer is themselves. Everybody knows that. But I think really when I look at it, there's a few reasons why people hold themselves back. And I think Sigmund Freud probably put this the best in his work that was called The Ego, the Id, and the Superego. So for those of you who haven't come across Sigmund Freud, he was the founder of psychoanalytical theory or psychoanalysis as a psychiatrist. And what he spoke about was that we've got this value set. So that the actual true definition of the word ego is true self. So when, most people throw around this term ego, they're actually incorrectly using it based on the original terminology. And so the word ego means the true self. And what he said is that we have this true self of who we are, which essentially is our value structure. And then from there, as a child, we have our emotional centers, and all emotions are volatile or cyclical. And that makes us more animal-like, where we want to move away from pain and move towards pleasure. We want good without bad. We want challenge without support. We want comfort without discomfort. And so that makes us volatile. Now, that volatility is normally governed and regulated by those who implant their values onto us, which is normally our parents, first of all. We go to school, so it's the teachers. It could be, religious figures or anyone we look up to. Anytime we look up to somebody, we essentially think we want to be like them. So we try to change ourselves relative to them and live in their values. When we do that, normally you'll start to get self-sabotage patterns. You start to get self-destructive behaviors. You'll start to get that internal dialogue where you go, you know what, I really want to do this, but I don't know, should I do it? Should I not do it? And so you start creating more self-doubt. And then a lot of the time you'll be trying to impress others, you'll be trying to please others. And the more you keep living outside of your own individual values, the more likely you are to self-destruct, to burn out. And by doing that, it again throws us back into that really primitive part of the brain known as the limbic system, which is our emotional system. It's a less evolved part of the brain. And then so we become more emotional. And you're probably aware that when emotions are high, intelligence is low. We've all done dumb shit. Am I allowed to swear on here?
By the way, of course, man. This is unfiltered, yeah.
Mate, you're British. That's I think the British and Aussies are very similar. Yeah, that was a bit of a joke. But anyway, so when emotions are high, we tend to do stupid shit. So when we're excited, we tend to not think through things properly. And when we're depressed and frustrated or angry or aggressive, we tend to not think through things effectively either. So when we're more logical in our thinking, our prefrontal cortex, or a more evolved part of the brain, which humans are lucky enough to have, most of the rest of the animal kingdom doesn't. So instead of most animals are just surviving and procreating, humans can actually forward think, forward plan. We can live our values should we choose to. But that prefrontal cortex allows us to govern and regulate our emotions. So the reason why I think most coaches, entrepreneurs, business owners, the general public, like really, it's the same for everybody. Human behavior is I find it very simple, and it's across a board. And it doesn't matter whether you're a mum, a dad, whether you've got a business, whether you're an employee. If you're living in somebody else's values, you're essentially trying to run in their lane, which you're never going to be good at. You're going to self-defeat, lower your self-worth, lower your value, and then you're going to beat yourself up and feel like shit because you're consistently comparing yourself to others. You'll feel like you're not good enough. That's going to hold you back. It's going to ruin your confidence. And then you'll start doing crazy stuff. Like for me, when I was younger, when I was lowering my self-worth, I would get really angry at myself. And when I'd get angry at myself, then I'd react and do crazy shit because I was trying to compensate for this self-depreciation that I had within myself. Then I'm trying to achieve by oversetting my goals. Then I would stuff that up as well and then beat myself up. So it was this vicious cycle of like self-depreciation, over-aggressiveness in pursuit of my goals. It was that whole grinding mentality of like, I've got to grind really, really hard and work harder than everybody else. But then I would burn out. And then when I'd burn out, I'd feel guilty and ashamed like I wasn't working hard enough. And so the cycle goes. So I'm pretty sure most people who are listening to this have been through these cycles a lot of times or most of their life. But essentially, it's implanted values and emotional volatility. Those two things will destroy someone's ability to achieve great things. The clearer you are with your mission, your purpose, your values, the clearer you understand that lifestyle balance is unique to you and that you need to set your day, your week, your life up according to your values and your mission, then life gets pretty easy. And then if you've got the right tools to keep your emotions in balance, not positive thinking, I think that's bullshit. Like if you study basic physics, anything that has a positive charge attracts a negative charge to stabilize. So you either want a stable brain or an unstable brain. Those who achieve the most are normally stable. Those who don't achieve normally go for the high highs and the excitement and the fun, and they're chasing all these new ideas and they got shiny object syndrome. And then when they've got to be consistent, they go, oh, this is boring, shit's not working. And then they start something else and they get excited again. And because of that, they just keep fucking up all their results. And so again, it just leads back to this self-depreciation cycle. And I'm sure we're going to go down the path later or something like that of morning routines and things like that. But again, it has to be unique to your value set and your mission. Like I get asked all the time on podcasts or, when I'm doing speaking engagements and stuff, what does your morning routine look like? And I always start with, I can tell you mine, but mine works for me. It probably won't work for you. Because it's got to be based on your values. And all these people that are waking up and doing ice baths and all of this shit, that's all cool. But if you're living outside of your values, you're going to self-depreciate and you're going to go through those volatile cycles. And so you'll do the ice bath for a while and then you'll stop doing it and then you'll beat yourself up and then you'll feel like shit and then you'll meditate and then you'll stop doing it and then you'll feel like shit again. And it's just like you have to base... You have to get clear on who you are. I mean, the greatest thinkers in history have always said, know thyself, be thyself. From Aristotle to Plato, the great philosophers, know thyself, be thyself. If you want to win the game of life, that's the only way to do it.
Powerful, man. Yeah, like as you were saying, I mean, there was a lot you covered there, but there's definitely a few things I can relate to in terms of seeking excitement and I definitely sometimes in the past like burning things to the ground. I'm like, fuck, this is boring. Like when you got to do the work. But man, yeah, like it's been a journey since that. I think what stood out to me there is that as you were talking through that, for me it's like shit. That's everyone, right?
Pretty much.
Like everyone.
This is why I work with billionaires and rich listers.
Yeah, like everyone is mimicking someone else. Everyone's looking at other people's lives like, look, I want to do that. I want to be like that. And I it really makes me think when you say this is like, why is this not taught in schools? Why are we not taught this at a young age to identify our values? What's your thoughts around that?
I get asked this question a lot as well. It sounds good in theory, right? But the truth is that most people have a lower level of intelligence. So this has nothing to do with criticizing people or judging people. It has everything to do though with evolution. So if you study evolutionary biology, it normally, if you look, the common pattern is a pyramid. Now, if you look at Elon Musk, how many Elon Musk do you reckon are in the world with that type of intelligence, that type of drive? There's not many, right? Like in the scheme of things, it's probably a 0.0000 something decimal place of people that are like that. When you look at billionaires, they're essentially a decimal point as well. So when you look at that pyramid of the richest of the rich, you've got this top group. They essentially they are counterbalanced by the rest of society, and there's all different levels of wealth creators underneath them. If you look at the world of intelligence, how many professors do you think there are in the world compared to uni graduates?
Less.
You know,
Obviously.
there's less.
Yeah. Obviously.
Then
yeah.
if you go to uni graduates versus people who never go to uni, there's a lot more people who've never gone to uni. Then if you look at people who drop out of school at different ages, there's probably more people with a grade, 3 reading level than there is people. I mean, actually, you'll find that the majority of the world as a whole are probably illiterate. So, everything is this sort of like a pyramid structure of evolution. If you look at single cell organisms, there's more single cell organisms than there is multicellular organisms. We've got trillions upon trillions of bacteria all over us right now, and we don't even notice it, but they're there. So there's more of them than there is human life. So my point is that intelligence seems to flow down this scale. Now, if you go out there and you say, right, we're going to teach the most intelligent shit to kids, most of them won't be able to handle it. And also, if you teach intelligent things to unintelligent people, they tend to misinterpret it. Now, I am a strong advocate of emotional balance and mental stability because I base these principles on physics, chemistry, and the hard sciences. If you look at electromagnetism, the north pole of a magnet attracts the south pole of a magnet in order to stabilize. So if we look at that, positive thinking makes no sense. It's one of the only supposed sciences, which is a soft science, that and social sciences and so on, where they talk about a positive without a negative and without creating some form of stability. And I think the more that people are negative, the more they crave positivity. The more they crave positivity, the more they set unrealistic expectations. The more they create those unrealistic expectations, the more it throws them back into a spiral of negativity and not being good enough and, not living up to this expectation of being positive all the time. And so it just goes around in a cycle. I don't think about being happy, nor do I think about being positive. I just get on with shit. And I do that because I'm mission driven. Like I'm focused on doing what I do and doing it at a great level and helping people perform better. Every day is like there are moments of happiness and there's moments of unhappiness, but I don't define my day based on my emotions. I base my day on how much I've moved the needle towards that mission. And also living my values because that's where I'm fulfilled. Like I exercise because I love training. I don't train because I'm trying to lose weight or any of that sort of shit, because when you do, once you get to the goal, you will normally self-sabotage in order to create drive again. And so driven people, like our community is called the Driven Mofos, because I work with some of the most driven people on the planet. Driven people normally are driven because they're trying to get away from pain and their goals are moving towards a pleasure state. But when they get to a pleasure state, they become complacent, they become lazy, they take their foot off the gas, and then they fuck up everything because that's what gives them the aggression and the drive again to want to get out there and do something. And their value and their self-worth comes from achievement. And so it creates this vicious loop. What I teach people is that when you're mission driven and you're long-term driven, you just live your values. I'm fulfilled. Like I'm not doing this today because I have to do it or it's helping me achieve a goal. That's not the case at all. I just love teaching. I can go to the shops and have this conversation with someone like just standing in the aisle. And if you ask my wife, she sometimes she'll go, how come you've been an hour at the shops? And I was like, well, I met this person and, and then the conversation, because that's what I love to do. So I just stay in my lane. I do what I do. Some of my clients make more money than I do. Some people have, they travel the world. Some people, they all have different things that they do better than me, but no one does me better than me. And that's how I just like it. Every time I go out of my lane, I just get smashed back into place emotionally, or, I end up falling to bits, or I get burnt out and then I get frustrated at myself. And it always reminds me, be authentic. And I think that the word authenticity gets thrown around so much in personal development and all around the place. Most people don't even know what that is. But what it really is, what authenticity is how congruent are you living your values, your mission, and your purpose in life? And that means that you're going to cop a lot of shit because people are going to try and pull you into their lane. They're going to tell you how to live based on how they want to live, all of that stuff. And you've probably been told this too, you work too much. I don't work too much. I work too much compared to you and what you want out of your life. I don't work too much for me. I work too much for you. So I tell people, just leave me alone. Let me do my thing. You do you, I do me. So yeah, I hope that answers the question, or if I've just sort of gone around in circles and not got to the point.
It's cool, man. There's a few things that stuck out to me there, though, 'cause especially when you're talking about, being mission driven, and I guess I guess there's attributes to this, but the main thing that comes to me is, does this change depending on masculine, feminine energy? Because like as you're talking through this as a as a man, or very much in your masculine energy, like very driven, goal orientated, I mean, you answered it there, but why is that, or what's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so I've having worked with, I guess, tens of thousands of people, I haven't seen a difference. And I try to find out, and based on the amount of studying, you can see, I mean, you get a small snippet of the bookcase behind me. But I've studied a lot of philosophy. I've studied a lot of the harder sciences. I've studied the softer sciences. I've studied the human behavior, the wealth creation, all of that stuff. Like I've spent a fortune on that stuff. And I've tried to look at what are the commonalities of people that are fulfilled and also achieve. And there are commonalities. And it doesn't matter whether they're male, female, transgender, whatever the other genders are out there these days. I don't know. That's not my specialty. I've got no idea what's going on. But what I know is that we're consistently being reinforced to be ourselves. Now, if achievement to you within your values, and let's say I'm just going to use generic generalizations here, so someone's going to get offended by this and probably write me hate mail and say I'm not like that. Not everybody's like that. I'm just fucking generalizing. So, chill out. For those of you who are about to smash a keyboard and send me some nasty messages. But let's just say it's a woman. Woman wants to have kids, wants to have a great family. And then you've got the husband that wants to work and have a career. Now, this is sort of a commonality in our society. If you've got, you'll have both a masculine and feminine force there, and they're a philosophical construct. So they're not scientific, they're philosophical. That philosophical construct is based on, like, if you look at Chinese philosophy, they'll say feminine energy is water and earth, masculine energy is fire and wood. You could say air as well, but you've got these two forces, and those forces are counterbalances, and the communication styles are, slightly different. It's all relative. So if I'm with a bunch of guys, we might all be very masculine when we're by ourselves and in our relationship, but when we get together, there is going to be the idea of masculinity is going to be based on the differences between the comparisons of each other. So in the moment that I'm being decisive, in that moment, I'm probably the most masculine person there. But then after that, when someone else is leading and driving and directing or doing something, they might be the most masculine person. So there are plenty of times throughout the day that Jess is more masculine than me, which is my wife. And then there are plenty of times where I'm more masculine than Jess based on that philosophy. Okay. So it's just a bit of an understanding. But when we're talking about values, the values will dictate what someone is driven towards. And so if, let's say, a woman wants to have a family, her form of achievement is going to come through the family dynamic. Then you've got, let's say, the husband who is driven in career and wealth creation. Now, the husband still wants to look after the family, and the wife also knows that she needs the wealth and the finances and the financial stability to look after the family. So those two polarities work really well together. Where I see this stuff's up, and I get this almost every time I run a business event, at least one person, if not more, come up to me and they go, and it's normally a male, but that's not always the case. A male will come up and say, I work really, really hard. I do it to provide for my family and to give us opportunities and create the stability. But my wife says I work too much and I get grilled all the time for not being at home. What that tells me is that they know they've created, they sort of understand each other's values, but they're not clear on them. They've sort of created these roles, which is an intelligent way of operating if you're in a relationship. So Jess and I have sort of roles in the relationship. That doesn't mean they're always like that. They're very flexible and permeable. But I know that there are certain things that Jess expects from me, and I expect certain things from her, and we work together on those things. Do we always follow through on that? No. Are we equal in the relationship? No, because there's no such thing. Like I can't compare myself to you. I can't compare myself to anyone else. So there's that whole idea of sameness is weird. So there are things that Jess does better than me. So why not work with her strengths and she works with my strengths and we achieve together? So we're a team, right?
Yeah.
And so what society's done is that we've taught people that they're not a team, they're individuals, they go into the relationship, and now you've got two individuals that are working hard to try and achieve something individually, and normally it comes at the expense of the other person. Then they clash, they don't know how to communicate effectively, and so that creates these huge explosions and the blow-ups, and then there's guilt, and then there's shame, and all of this sort of shit, and it destroys relationships. Now, some people stay together their whole lives, that doesn't really mean they've got a good relationship. It just means they're together.
Yeah.
Okay, it is what it is. Then there are other people who learn how to navigate that. And for myself and Jess, we used to have we still have conflict, right? Conflict is healthy. And it's healthy because you can't have peace without war, and you can't have war without peace. Every time there is a war, or we're aggressive towards someone, or there's an argument, normally we try to find mutual ground. And the reason why people argue, or the reason why there's fighting, or there's some form of war, is because you've got one person with a set of values and a set of beliefs and ideas and ideals, and another person with exactly the same things that are different, and they don't know how to communicate it effective and get their point across to each other, so it gets more volatile, and that communication is more aggressive. If you can navigate that and go, okay, well, they're obviously upset, there's something that I'm not realizing here, and you communicate more effectively, then it works. But coming back to your question, which was around, is it different for masculine and feminine? The answer is no, because the idea of achievement is based on the value structure of the individual themselves. And if you're in a relationship, I think that it's a good idea to understand who is naturally more masculine and who is naturally more feminine, what the communicational differences are in that, when it switches. Because I go feminine quite a lot. Like after a big speaking engagement where I've been speaking for 4 days, 5 days, 7 days straight, I'm completely feminine. Okay, I lose my drive. I just want to go in a flow. I need to relax. I need to heal. That's part of the feminine energy if you go back to ancient philosophy. So my communication style changes. I start to communicate on my emotions and on my feelings, not logically as much. But when that happens, Jess normally goes very logical in her communication and just wants to get shit done and grinds hard. So it'll switch in a relationship, and you need to know when it happens. You need to know how to communicate and switch your communication style and your understanding of the other person. Really, everything in life, I think, is about, first of all, understanding yourself. But once you do that really well, it then becomes about how do you understand others through your communication and so on, because it takes a team to win the game of life.
Yeah, I love that, man. That was really powerful. We'll steer away from this, but I think you led to a good point there, and what I said there is like, well, there's a lot of good points. Working as a team in a relationship. You said that we've been led to be individuals almost. Like people have, been led to, or being influenced or taught to, you are your own person. And why do you think that is?
Because it's a part of progression. So it's not the end result, but it's part of progression, right? So if you're a young child, and like I was at school, well, obviously I was a young child at some stage, but I guess sometimes I say the most obvious shit. So when I was younger and I was going through the school system, I got told that I had to do well at school so that I could get a good education, so that I could go to university and get a good job. Now, that was my mum's insecurity because she fell pregnant at 17 years of age, and my dad was 19. My mum came from a Catholic family. Dad was a bogan atheist. And so there probably was a lot of insecurity going on in that family dynamic. Now, my parents are still together. They're awesome. I get along with them really, really well. But growing up, my mum used to put a lot of pressure on me around my education. Now, I assume from my mum's perspective, and this is an assumption, that, and I probably need to have a discussion with her about this and how she felt. But I would assume that being 17 and dropping out of school and not being able to go to university was tough for her, especially when she's got 3 brothers and sisters that all went to university and went on to a corporate career where they earned really good money and traveled the world and ran rather large businesses, or had roles in rather large business as almost like a C-suite executive. So very high level. And then there's my mum selling shoes at a local retail store and just trying to scrape by. My dad had 2 jobs, and he got kicked out of school, I think, when he was 15 or 16. And dad's side of the family they've always been blue collar workers, and mum's side of the family are white collar workers. My grandpa, I assume, put that onto his kids because he had to drop out of school at 13 because his dad died. So my great-grandfather, his dad died when he was 13. And so he dropped out of school because his mum never worked. And so he became man of the house, and he just went into survival mode. And slowly he worked his way up as an executive and probably wanted his kids to go to school. And so he pushes that on them. Then my mum and her brothers and sisters all go to university and so on. So there's this projection of values onto our kids from things that parents believe will give their children the best chance of survival and probably the greatest life. But that comes normally from their own values and their own insecurities, okay, their own voids, the things that they perceived were missing. So that then gives the child some sort of a progression in life. Like my mum projected her values onto me. I had some of my dad's, then I go to school and then I get the teachers telling me stuff. And so I get all these values projected onto me. I get told what's right, what's wrong, what's good, bad. That's all the projection of values, the implanted values. That also helps you to govern as a child your emotional volatilities and your reactivity, because if not, you end up fucking crazy and you have no rules and no boundaries. So it is an important part of growth. But the first thing that happens is, as a child, you essentially know who you are, because if you feel a certain way, you react to that feeling. But as you start to grow up, you start to and you start to have parents that project their values. That stops you from being emotionally erratic and just going and saying, I want to go outside and play in the rain, and mum and dad go, no, don't do that because you're going to get muddled through the house and so on. So the parents project their values onto the child. The child then starts to lose itself and lose its own identity. But the cool thing is, now we have a life purpose, because I believe that there's part of our life purpose in there, or the human life purpose is to find ourselves. And so I think that humans have a bit of an Easter egg hunt that lasts their whole life. And a lot of people say this, like, I don't know who I am. And I'm like, fucking no one does.
Yeah.
Right? So don't stress about it. But you learn, you get these little insights throughout your life. And that comes through, inspiration, moments of inspiration. It can come through attending some of the events like I run, or there's some other people out there who do it really well. There's a lot of people in our industry that do it really bad, but there's a couple of people out there who do it really, really well. That over time you get these insights into who you are. But every day I'm learning who I am, and I learn that through mistakes and fucking shit up. I also learn it through living my own values and getting these moments of inspiration. I'm like, I'm on the right path, and so on. So we get these moments. And if you're aware, the more you get them, the more self-aware you become. The more self-aware you become, the faster you get the growth. And it's just part of progress. So I think that, if it would be a great idea to just teach kids certain things, or to just do certain things and think life's going to be better if that happens, but it probably won't be. Like, it's just everyone's starting from different stages of evolution. I don't know why that is. There's different theories out there. But like, your stage of evolution, where you started from, is different than where I started from, which is different to where my friends start from. I don't think that matters. I think that it matters more about how you progress and how you learn and how you adapt and how you evolve as an individual. But really, like, I think the more stupid and the more, I shouldn't use the word stupid, but the more ignorant someone is, the more that they think that there's this idealistic, perfect way of living. When you go through your own journey for long enough and you're more self-aware, you realize that every day you wake up, you fuck shit up and you learn from it, and you get moments of inspiration, you progress. And I have people who say to me all the time, like, why can you made these mistakes in the past. Why should you teach people how to live? And I'm like, well, because I'm a fucking human. I don't expect to be pedestaled, right? I don't expect to be pedestaled. Now, people come up to me all the time and they're like, I look up to you, and I'm like, don't look up to me. Okay? I'm not someone to look up to. Don't pedestal me, because when you do that, you put yourself down because you feel guilty that you're not at the same position that I'm in. The key thing is, though, just play your own game. You're going to make a lot of mistakes, and people that believe that they shouldn't make mistakes normally hold themselves back the most. Like, go hard, make mistakes, do dumb shit. Normally there's going to be other people who judge you because they're taking the attention off of their own insecurities, because I don't care what people do. I don't care that they make mistakes. Like, why do I care? But when I'm judging somebody else and going, look at them, that's because I'm taking the focus off of me. Every time I do that, I lose my own growth. And most of society are unintelligent. They're stuck. They don't know what to do. They've gone around in circles. They're trying to please other people. They're living outside of their values and living outside of their lane. And so they spend all their time reading the tabloids, reading what other people are doing, judging and criticizing them. And so many people in our society become afraid to do things because they're like, people are going to judge me. People are going to criticize me. Yeah, they will. But they're the people who aren't living life. They're the people that aren't playing the game. I mean, you know this, like in any sport, the people who play the game are always the ones who get paid the most. Okay, they're playing the game. They're on the field. But the grandstand is full of shitheads that just tell people how to play the game. But if they were that good, they'd be playing the game right and getting paid. Yeah. Instead, they sit in the grandstands and play in order to criticize people and tell them how to play the game. Who are the smart ones? I know where I'd rather be.
Yeah, man. Interesting, dude. Very interesting. I think there's so many points covered. I'm kind of like, where do I want to take that? But where did... There's a few things that I've heard you say quite common, right? Or quite commonly, which is, and I guess from an outsider's perspective, it might be quite confusing because when you're like, you know, fuck positivity or this or that, and I'm going to expand on my question here a little bit more because I feel like I understand it. Like, I think what you're talking about, and I'll let you give your perspective, but you're talking about like blind positivity, where it's like I just need to be positive all the time. Whereas I feel like, and I could be wrong here, but I feel like people get pulled into positivity because their life's shit. Their life's already full with so much negativity, so they're trying to find that light, they're trying to find that hope, because otherwise they'd just be in the darkness, otherwise they'd just be in the pain. And I guess my understanding here is the problem is people look to them positivity and try to have positivity constant, whereas what you're saying is it's not about having one or the other. It's about balance between the two. It's not about I'm just this or I'm just that. It's about riding the line down the middle.
Yeah, you're pretty much spot on. If you look at frequencies, right, and I'm not going to go woo-woo here, but if you look at frequencies, a frequency of something essentially is, I'm going to try and say this in the most simple form, and someone who's a physicist is going to lose their shit here, or an engineer. But essentially, a frequency is the amount of time a sine wave goes through the center point or the center line, right? So between the peak and the trough, amplitude is the height and the low. So the higher, the lower, the low, I guess you could say is amplitude. But frequency is the amount of time that it takes essentially for a sine wave to go back through the center point and create a full wave. Okay, that's the peak and the bottom, the top and the bottom. So if you have a look, something that has a higher frequency will move through that center point more often than something with a low frequency. Now, if we think about our emotional states and we're more balanced and we're more stable, we tend to be closer to that center line. So if you think about the way the diagram that I draw this, and I've seen other people draw it this way as well. If you imagine a pendulum and you've got almost like a triangle, and you've got a bit of string that hangs with a weight on the bottom. Now, if you grab it and you swing it back and forward, and it's quite long, let's say it's 1 meter long, or in the US you could say 3 feet or whatever, and you grab the weight and you swing it from the bottom, which is 1 meter long, from one side to the other. At the top, the movement from the center point is going to be a lot less than the point from the bottom. Okay, does that sort of make sense?
Yeah, I think I'm following.
Yep. So if I do a bit of a diagram here, you've got a triangle. The point here, it's only going to move a little bit back and forward there, right?
Yeah.
But from the bottom, if I pull it right the way across to the left, it's got to swing right the way back to the right.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is our emotional states are essentially like that piece of string. If you're very balanced, you're more up to the top. So you might swing back and forward a lot, right? But it's very minor. And you can swing back and forward a lot, like that frequency of moving in and out of that top and bottom line. So throughout the day, you might have little frustrations, but they just pop up, and you're okay, we'll bring it back into balance, and then it goes back into balance, and so on. And so it swings back and forward through that middle line. When you have these big polarities and these big swings, you're going to have high highs, but you're going to have low lows. And so the question is, and I believe that the law of balance, the same thing that the Chinese philosophers have been speaking about for thousands of years, and some of the greatest philosophies in history have spoken about it, the greatest cultures throughout history have spoken about this principle, which is similar to yin and yang, right? And what it states is that the bigger the darkness grows, the bigger the light grows also. So as one side expands, so does the other. Right? And this is why, I sort of criticize people. I've seen people who have like the peace sign on their arm, and then they have the yin and yang sign. And I'm like, mate, you can't have peace without war. And if you believe in the yin and yang symbol, like the darkness is the same as the light. They're both the same, and they're both the same width. So the more that you try to crave peace, the more you're creating war. The more you want positivity, the more negativity you're actually creating. Okay? And I think this principle is very, from a lot of studies that I've done, this is very obvious in the brain. Okay. And so when you look at people that are trying to be positive all the time and they've got these big emotional negativities, they're rushing to try and be positive, but it throws them back into the negative. And just like you would have had this experience also, and a lot of the listeners will probably have this if they're driven, you'll grind really, really hard, you'll overwork and overpush yourself, but when you do, then you fall into a massive rut, you feel like shit, you start beating yourself up, you feel guilty that you're not working hard enough. The question is, if you just naturally went into flow and kept that in balance, wouldn't you end up in the same place with less stress?
Yeah.
Like you'd achieve the exact same amount. So my whole thing is like find your flow through your mission and realize that the mission never ends. As you grow, the mission grows, the mission gets bigger. So I'm not in a rush to achieve anything because I know that the more that I grow, the more that the mission grows anyway. So I'm just like, every day I just wake up, live my values, move towards the mission, and then we just keep going. Like if I need rest, I just take rest. If I need a day off, I just take a day off. If I want to work late, I work late. Like I don't stress too much about things, whereas I used to be like, I got to get up at 5 a.m. I got to get shit done. I got to train for an hour. I got to do this. I've got to eat this amount of calories. And the more that I created this idea of like, when I get there, then everything will be better, the more it fucked with me mentally. And so when I see a lot of these really driven people that are having these mental breakdowns and this burnout and all that sort of stuff, I can tell a lot about them. And that's normally when I get them reach out. In fact, I've had a couple today that reach out and, they're like, dude, I've been giving you a number because I'm just like in this fucking rut. Like the wheels have fallen off, mate. Like I was doing well and then the shit just hit the fan and everything started disintegrating. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. I get it. But you're either going to play life at that level or you're going to move above that level. And that means you've got to work in inspiration. And if you read some of the greatest philosophies, they use common words about the way to live. And so they use words like gratitude, love, presence, peace, but it's peace of mind. It's not the idea of external peace, it's peace of mind. And when you look at this idea of perfect balance and symmetry, okay, sometimes you hear it, there's lots of different terminologies for it. You could call it yin yang or whatever. But that center point is this beautiful state that you can just operate in where you just keep micro adjusting throughout the day. So you're not positive, but you're not negative, and you just keep micro adjusting throughout the day. And what it does, it gives you moments of inspiration and gratitude and presence, and that's where you come into your flow. There's all this stuff out there about flow state and blah, blah, blah. The simplest thing is if you're living your values and you're in your mission, you're in flow state. That's it. But do you stay in that state? No, because we're humans. Our senses naturally pull us out of that. I can put together the whole biological science and all of that sort of shit and the physiology behind it. But essentially our senses have to divide everything. So you can't have hot without the perception of cold. You can't have up without the perception of down. So in order to navigate life, we have to create these polarities. Those polarities in our minds are what give us that imbalance. Okay? But the more intelligent we become, the more we can just navigate that by being a bit more centered. Now, does that mean you're not going to fly off the handle? Fuck no. Like I still get angry. I still get stressed. I still get frustrated. The difference is when I was a kid, I used to get angry and I would go and smash things or I would go and break things. Like part of the reason you can probably see how bent my nose is because that was broken in a pub fight. My porcelain veneer teeth are because they got broken in a pub fight. That there, the scar on my head is because I got stabbed with a bottle. Like I used to be an absolute feral idiot. And I was that way because I just didn't know how to control myself. Okay, I was very primitive. I was living in my emotional state. And so when I used to get angry, that anger might have lasted a month where I just wake up in the morning, I'm just like, fuck everybody. This is bullshit. Like life's crap. Screw everyone. And that would go on for like a month straight. Now I have like 2 minutes of that.
Yeah. So
that's evolution.
Before you move on from that point.
Yeah.
Because I've observed this in myself a lot as well. Like, and I would label it as like, I guess I see it as reframing or like something like if I find myself, something happens, I find myself going into a very negative for letting it ravel up my emotions. And then I like have this little moment of conversation with myself and kind of like playing devil's advocate with the thought. And then it allows me to like let it go and move on and almost in some ways find a silver lining. And I think something I've been arriving at lately is more like, if I'm being honest, there's been a lot of stuff that's happened in my life, especially in the last few years. And I'm at a point now where it's like, you know what, just shit happens. Shit happens and it's not always something you can do about it. You can't change it. It's just how you move forward with it. So I could be completely wrong there, but I guess that's what's working. That's what's working for me at the moment. Is this little moment of reflection and reframing. What do you do in the moment. So you've said there, like in the past, it could turn into a bad month. Now it's a couple minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I guess one of the things that I do, and I actually had a conversation with someone this morning, and this is a new business owner that got referred to me and reached out, and he said, this shit hit the fan, everything's gone crazy. And he said, what do I do? And I said, okay, your brain works in essentially charges, like our whole nervous system works on this concept of charges, these positive and negative ions. We have different minerals and stuff like that allow for certain transport of electrons and stuff like that. I won't get too deep into that, and I'll probably just butcher it again. If there's a biologist on here, they're probably gonna come on, man. But I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible. So in the brain, there's these perceptions of positive and negative. Now, our brain is searching for balance. My belief, and this is my belief based on having worked with tens of thousands of people, and this is an observation. There isn't the scientific literature to back this up yet, but I think we'll get there because we're getting closer to it based on the literature that's coming out in neuroscience. I believe that the brain is consistently looking to try to bring us back into balance, and sleep is part of that. It was Dr. John Demartini, who is a very close friend of mine, and when I get time to communicate with him, we normally have some great conversations. He's a pretty switched on dude. And something that he has pointed out to me is that if we're going through these negative states, essentially, the brain is trying to figure out where the benefits are in those disadvantages or the negatives. And I saw this from working with people who would come to me with PTSD, diagnosed PTSD, and they were normally military or they'd been through certain traumas and stuff. Now, this isn't my expertise. This isn't... I can deal with this stuff, but it's not my. I don't advertise it because I don't want events full of victims and all that sort of stuff. And I just want to help people perform better. Like, if you want to kick ass, I'm your guy. But if you want to, hold the victim card and play that out, and you're going to get benefits from that, then I'm not your guy, because I don't put up with that shit. Like, life's too short. Fucking get on with stuff. Mm. And part of the reason why I'm a prick like that is because my best friend's 3-year-old niece was killed in a car accident when I was 21, and I saw that life gets taken away just like that. So if we're not going to move on with shit in our own life, I don't want to be around people or, all of that sort of stuff, because it's just, you're going to waste your life and you're going to die one day and no one's going to care, right? So I want to make sure that I'm around people that are optimizing their life and are pushing it to the limits so that they can live the best, most epic life that they can. Now, that's why I do what I do. But anyway, if from what I've seen with PTSD is that when someone has this traumatic experience, there's a lot of negatives that are associated with it. But I believe that part of the reason why they get flashbacks and why it keeps popping up in their brain is to show them that there are benefits to what they've been going through. Now, that's hard for most people to understand, but that's because most people are volatile and living in their amygdala or their limbic system, and so they're emotional and they want pleasure without pain, they want good without bad. But having worked with some of those people, in fact, they want to start to use some of my methods with emergency services to help them with mental health issues. So I'm sort of working with a group at the moment on that. But anyway, I think part of the reason why things occupy our brain is because until it's balanced out, it'll keep popping up. And it was Dr. John Demartini who said that it's our nighttime dreams that counterbalance our daytime. So if we're over-supported during the day, we'll have nightmares or challenges in our dreams in order to counterbalance it. So our brain is trying to create balance through either our daytime or our nighttime. And I just heard Dr. Andrew Huberman only say this recently in like a podcast in last year. And I was like, yes, this is starting to become mainstream. Demartini's been talking about this for 20 years. So it's pretty cool. And he was out there. A lot of people have judged him and criticized him and said this stuff's stupid. But it's good to see it's becoming mainstream. So what I believe is that in those moments when you start to believe that your past is negative, it's because, or you've got this past, what normally happens is the negative charge is still there, but what you've done is you've tried to put a silver lining over the top of it. Now, what I say at my events is like, you can put a serviette over dog shit and pretend that it's not there, but the dog shit's still there and it still stinks.
Yeah.
What you've got to do is you've got to lift the serviette up and you've got to go back in there and clean it up. And so when you go back in there and you clean it up and you look at all the benefits and the benefits to the people who you think have been negatively impacted, over time it starts to diminish the guilt or the shame or the resentment or the frustration, and you just watch the emotional charges go. So like as a kid, I was bullied a lot. I had bright red hair, freckles, I was chubby. And I've been asked on podcasts like, what would you say if you met those bullies? Thank you. And I watched their jaw fucking drop. And they go, but how could you say that to the kids that bullied you and all that? And I said, because I wouldn't be who I am today. Like, I'm on social media talking about this stuff and helping people and pushing the boundaries and the limits. The reason why I'm confident in doing that and I'm not afraid of criticism or judgment of others most of the time is because those kids were teaching me a valuable lesson about the opinions of others. And if I didn't go through that, I wouldn't have had to develop the strength to do what I do now. So I am who I am because of them, and I would thank them for it. Now, that's not like I'm not saying that because it sounds like a good thing. It's just that I have no emotional response to it. I have none. Okay, it's just part of my journey. That's how I see it. Like my best friend's 3-year-old niece who was killed in a car accident. Tragic, but I can talk about it now with no emotional intent. No, there's no emotional response. Because if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have started this journey of self-development and self-growth and self-learning, and I wouldn't be who I am today. So she died that day, but I was born that day. Right? And it gives me tingles saying that. If it wasn't for her, I don't know that I'd be doing this. Therefore, I would have no mission, no purpose, and no reason in life, and I'd still be fucking lost. So, I'm thankful and grateful. Now, that's not saying that I would want that situation to happen to anyone, nor would I want that to happen again. But what I know is that day changed me for the better. So that's lifting the serviette up, going in there, finding out all the benefits, seeing what happened, and moving on with things.
Yeah. So in some ways, I mean, like I say, silver lining, but it's more like what you're saying is you need to find the blessing. You need to find what's good within the pain. So if stuff's happening that is making you feel negative or is putting you into a low, you need to look at that situation and say like, or be able to arrive at a point where it's like, well, what is this actually gifting me? And I guess truthfully arrive at that, not just say.
I think
not just say it.
Yeah, the terminology I would tweak a little bit because like when you say gift, people are like, well, hang on. But if you just look at what are the benefits, so I say to someone like, what are the benefits, or what are the drawbacks or disadvantages? What did you gain from it? And so you start looking around that from different angles, and slowly you start to see that there are benefits to all parties. So there are some times where, I'll do something and I feel like sometimes I made financial decisions in the business where it's heavily impacted Jess and she's upset and then I start feeling like shit, I start feeling guilty, and that starts occupying my mind. Then I grab a pen and paper and go, what are the benefits to me? What are the benefits to Jess? What are the disadvantages to me of making these decisions? What are the disadvantages to Jess? And I try and neutralize it. Once I neutralize it, I realize that things have happened with Jess. So either she becomes stronger in her opinions, she stands up for herself a little bit more, she will pull me up on things. And so over the years, she's become more confident. She's become a lot stronger. In fact, she's running the company now because of a lot of the stupid decisions that I've made where she's been really upset, but she's built her confidence in being able to speak up and say what she wants. Because she'll say things like, I knew we shouldn't have done it, but I just let other people make that decision for me. Now she'll say what she wants to say. So there is this growth that's happening for everybody. But if you think that someone has a disadvantage or a negative without a benefit, then you'll feel guilt, you'll feel shamed, and you'll beat yourself up, and that lowers your self-worth. Now, I'm not saying, because some people say things like, oh, well, then you can just get out there and like someone kills somebody and you just, they're a benefit, and then you're promoting all this stuff. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying you need to neutralize it. If you go above it and just go, oh, fuck, there's heaps of benefits, so therefore I'm going to do it again, that's stupidity. That just means that your pendulum went from one side of stupid to the other side of stupid. It didn't bring you back to balance. When you're in balance, your brain sees both sides and you go, okay, I can see there's benefits and there's drawbacks. I'm going to make a better, more inspired decision next time, not one based on my emotions. I've never met someone or I've never been around someone, and I've dealt with some pretty wild cases before, whether it be people that have been in jail, people that have done criminal activity, people that have been through some of the most severe shit in life that I would never wish upon anybody. When I've worked with them, when you bring them back to balance, even if they've been the perpetrator or the person who's done something bad, they have never said, I want to go out and do more of that. What they do is in that moment, it's like a pressure valve that releases and they're inspired and they're like, wow, I made a lot of stupid decisions in my past. I want to do things better for me and for others. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, no, totally makes sense. I want to kind of wrap up and summarize this session. It's been amazing, dude. And I kind of want to kind of like rapid fire, like 3 things that anyone can be integrating into their life, whether it's a form of reflection, whatever it is. Like, what are 3 things people should implement into their life to allow them to be more authentic, be more successful, or, be more in balance?
Okay, so the first thing is get really clear with your values and their priority. Don't bullshit yourself. If you need to understand values better, probably read The Values Factor by Dr. John Demartini. I do a lot of stuff on values as well that's slightly different than John's, but the ideas and the principles are similar. But that's a great way of getting clear on them. Essentially, values come from a field of study called axiology, which is physical, tangible things. Values aren't kindness and happiness and all of that shit. They're emotional states. They're physical, tangible things that you're trying to achieve in your life. So mine is teaching, learning, coaching, my number 1. Number 2 is leadership and high value connection. Number 3 is business and wealth creation. Number 4 is physical fitness and physical appearance. They're my top 4 values. I spend 97 to 99% of my life in those values, right? Because that's where I'm most fulfilled. I very rarely go outside of them. When you get clear on those things, you thrive in life. And also, if you're an entrepreneur, you obviously want to generate more money. Money is the exchange of value. If you're living outside of your values, you normally self-depreciate. Things that self-depreciate go down in value. The more you go down in value, the more you're going to lower your ability to generate wealth. The more you live inside your values, the greater your ability to generate wealth. That's why I work with rich listers and shit like that. When they start self-depreciating, money goes down. So get clear with your values, number 1. Number 2 is figure out what your long-term mission is and be driven from that. I would recommend not to set too many goals until you get clear on what the mission is, the long-term mission. When you're super clear on that, then you set goals, because goals are just stop-off points on the journey to the mission. If you're setting goals, they're normally a start, stop, and that's where you start to self-sabotage and you'll grind and then burn out and all that sort of stuff. So you don't get the good long run for results. So that's number 2. Number 3 is do as much mental and emotional balancing work as you can, because most people are starting from a place where they're a child. Children are emotionally driven. That prefrontal cortex in the brain isn't developed. For males, it normally develops around their late 20s. For females, it normally develops more around their early 20s. And that's where we start making a lot more logical and intelligent decisions. So why normally when we're in our teens, we normally make a lot of stupid, unintelligent decisions. But we grow out of it as we get a bit older, right? We start to settle down a bit more and so on. I was only talking to Jess the other week and we were talking about, I just bought an 8 Sleep. I'm not sure if you've seen it. They're like the bed mattresses that are temperature controlled. Oh, wow. And they run water through them and heat and cool and stuff like that. And we put new sheets on the bed and all that. And I said, whoever thought of the day, like if you told me back when I was like 19 and 20, that like the coolest Saturday night was chucking on the 8 Sleep, putting fresh sheets on the bed and then going to sleep by like 9 o'clock, I would have told you that person was an absolute loser. What a fool. And that's like my ultimate Saturday night, just chilling in bed, watching some TV with Jess, just hanging out. Whereas now, like people like, come out and party, come out and drink. And I'm like, I can't be fucked. I'm going to wake up with a hangover. I'm going to feel like shit. It's going to take me like a week to get back to, I can't be bothered. I'd rather wake up in the morning and train. So, but back in those days, I would have thought I was a loser. So yeah.
Cool, man.
Be more balanced. Sorry, it's not rapid fire, mate.
No, that's cool, man. That's cool. Look, dude, I appreciate you taking this time today. Is there any last thoughts? Is there anything that you'd like to say to end the show? Maybe plug some of your work. Where can people find out a little bit more about you if they want to, see how they could potentially work with you?
If you just look up Michael Mojo, I guess, Mojo, I got called Mojo years ago, and so that sort of stuck. So then I became Michael Mojo. You can find me on Michael Mojo Michael Mojo 00 on Instagram, Facebook, all of that stuff. Just shoot me a message, say hi. Let me know you've listened to the podcast or whatever. You can look up our website, themojomaster.com.au or mojohumanperformanceinstitute.com. You'll find plenty of stuff. I got a podcast as well, The Underestimated Entrepreneur, because I've always been underestimated my whole life. So, I just thought I'd share stuff every day of like different thoughts, different things that I learned along my journey of business, entrepreneurship, relationships, mindset, clients that I've worked with, some cool stories, some not so cool stories too. So, but look, you'll find me if you want to find me.